There's that narrative the gaming industry is always trying to push. We're fine. Everything is fine. The future, it's bright. Look at all these games coming out. It's all going to be great. What's that? Things are getting more expensive? Nah, come on. Everything is fine. The current direction of how everything is going is working just as intended, guys. Just believe it. And then you actually look behind the scenes and what's happening on the other side of the curtain, and you immediately go, oh, wow, yeah, okay, no, that narrative is completely falling apart, isn't it? Because right now, some of the biggest names in video games, like we're talking PlayStation, Nintendo, like dude, they're not just struggling, okay? These companies are actively making decisions now that are downright eroding the very foundations that these platforms are being built on, and it's honestly crazy. And the scariest part, in my opinion, is not even the competition that's causing all of this to happen. No, really, instead, it's something else entirely. It's arrogance. Like, let's start with Sony, since this one is really riling people up for good reason. So, in case you were just born, Sony has positioned PlayStation as a brand as the gold standard for years. They focused on their whole prestige single-player experience mantra with the high-quality hardware and a clear identity that you knew that you could trust, at least at first. But in the past few years, that hasn't exactly been the case anymore, and that's putting it lightly. You see, before you could expect every year to get a few great single-player games, right? Spider-Man, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Ratchet and Clank, Gran Turismo, which my laptop keeps auto-correcting to Gran Turismo, which is annoying, and many, many more. If we go even further back, Sony was tripping over the exclusive games back then too, right? Demon's Souls, Resistance, Killzone, Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, the Uncharted games, Shadow of the Colossus, and Ico. Even back then, you had games like Final Fantasy X. And even Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 were exclusives at the time. I mean, yeah, not anymore, mind you, but back in the PS2 era, even it was. But then it kind of all just shifted, and that's when it started to fracture, because now we saw a massive pivot to live service. We need live service Last of Us, God of War, there's that Horizon game coming with a woman the size of an elephant, who has a peg leg, like that's real by the way, and who can forget Marathon? Please play Marathon. The journalists really need that game to succeed, but in reality, we all want more single player games. Remember Concord, the game that costed almost 10 times the budget of The Witcher 3 that nobody played? Yeah, that became Sony's new design philosophy. In fact, it was supposed to be their future at one point too. Billions just being invested into projects not really designed as experiences, but just like long-term monetization platforms instead. And the results have been, underwhelming at best, I would say. Catastrophic at worst, actually, because before, if a game didn't work for Sony and it failed, it was usually not as big of an investment as it was like now, right? But when every game is like hundreds of $1,000,000 to make, now you got really, really expensive failures. The problem here wasn't just that the live service bets weren't working, it was more so. Because like these games were never really aligned with what players wanted from Sony in the first place. And now the consoles are even more expensive too. Like, come look at this. Sony has now confirmed that all of their hardware is going up in price, and this will be effective starting April 2nd, 2026. Here's the prices now in various currencies for you to see. The PS5 base model will be $650 before tax, American, mind you. The Pro is going to be $900 American. You gotta be kidding me, dude. What does that even equate to in Canadian dollars where I live? But as you can see here, like the PS5 will now be $1,230 Canadian starting April 2nd, 2026. That is real, by the way, and by God is that crazy to see. Your best case scenario now is that if you really want a Pro, you kind of have to go out now and get one before these price surges just go up like crazy. Look, I have the PS5 and the Pro myself. The Pro is, better in every way, I have to admit. So all I'm going to say is that if you do game on PlayStation and plan to stay there and you have the money, you should probably buy it now. If you wait too long, well, it's just going to be a mess pretty much. But what I love is how at the bottom of this article is seen here, Sony asks, did you like this? With a heart. No, I didn't like this. Who in their right mind would be happy that older hardware is getting more expensive than it already is? So why is this happening? Well, as seen here, Sony says it's because of the pressures of the global economic landscape. Rises in RAM prices and all that stuff too. Everything is getting more expensive. Like, dude, I bought some food yesterday from the store. I spent $62 on a single bag of groceries. Nothing crazy either, like bananas, tangerines, some milk, some like cold cuts like turkey and stuff, a box of cereal, bread, and a few other things. $62. What's going on? Like, we got gas prices surging. Nobody can get a job these days. And now the PlayStation is even more expensive. Like, my girlfriend tells me all the time how a lot of her friends still can't get jobs. Like, it's ridiculous. They all have degrees and all that stuff too. Like, what is this? Is this like 2008 all over again or something? Because it kind of feels like 2008 all over again. Can you imagine being a teenager right now who loves video games? You basically got to sell a kidney to buy the new NBA 2K game. Like, how are these younger people meant to afford all of these games and more? Like, they can't. A single PS5 controller is like $100 in Canada. The games are $80 or more a pop. How do you want gaming to be affordable and to attract more people here, Sony? Because this is how you end up making millions of people abandon your ecosystem and then just go for the PC and just live off cheap Steam games for the rest of time instead, and you can't blame them. As user Radic posted on Twitter here, back in 2018, you could snag a PS4 with Spider-Man for $200 American during Black Friday. A new PS5 controller during Black Friday was $40. Like, we are so past this right now, it's unreasonable. You would never see those prices today. The fact that Sony could afford that, even on a Black Friday, is the point, right? Like, you see, usually this is how it goes down, right? The console, if you don't know, is sold at a loss for them. They know that they're not going to make their money back on the console, but that's not the point. The point was to sell it at a loss so that people would buy it, and then the console would then get into your home. Then, like the Venom symbiote, like the PS4 or the 5, would then consume you, and now you have to feed it games and all that to keep it alive. That is where Sony would make their money. Yeah, we lost out on the PS5 maybe, but look, they bought this game and that game and this subscription and yada yada yada. And then voila, we're now making money. It's the long-term investment. It's a smart idea. It's worked for a really long time. Now, this doesn't make a lick of sense at all now, right? It makes even less sense considering that Sony is not even trying to make those handcrafted experiences like they used to that we all like, love, and want more of. All they kind of do now is chase trends, and when you chase those sorts of things at the AAA level where everything is more expensive than ever, you don't just miss if you mess up these days, right? Like, you miss expensively. Hundreds of millions of dollars just poured into something that struggles to find an audience. And when you got failures like that, like it just chips away at the brand itself too. As Insider Gaming said here, the average cost of a AAA game now is somewhere near $300 million or more. Which is absolutely ridiculous to fathom. This comes from Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, by the way, who said this. Apparently, this is why you're seeing so much restructuring when it comes to game studios lately, because the price of these games are so expensive that the only way to get them made is to shed talent so that you don't have to pay them further. Think of it like a rocket ship, right? Imagine all these developers are pieces of this rocket. It gets all made, it's ready, it shoots into the sky, it breaks the atmosphere, and then as these developers' parts to the project become less important or crucial, they are then removed from the studio or the rocket until eventually the game is done and it can now soar through space, probably into an asteroid or something, and blow up because it fails anyways. Video games, don't you love them, guys? This is a great industry. You know, my girlfriend tells me from time to time that she once thought about working in video games. She works in tech, by the way, and was looking at game positions at one point. And by God, is she glad that she never did that, because dude, it's such a volatile environment. Every day you wake up wondering, is this the day I get tossed aside? Like, what an insane business practice, man. Sometimes I just kind of hate it here. But this is where it all gets dangerous, right? Because once a company like a Sony starts losing its identity by chasing stuff that nobody really wants, everything they do going forward then becomes reactive. So instead of leading the industry like they used to, they just kind of follow what others are doing instead. And that's exactly what's happening with Sony right now, and I hate it. It's annoying. It's a company that, sure, at one point maybe defined the direction of what games should be doing, and now they're just trying to keep up with a game model that isn't even working for them. Look at Marathon, right? Like, stop doing that sort of stuff. But now, let's pivot for a second over to the land of Super Mario and Zelda with Nintendo for a bit. Because these guys, they're also getting cooked too. Sure, okay, Nintendo has kind of been doing the opposite of what Sony's been doing game-wise, at least. They're, at least I guess, focusing heavily on their IP still, on the gameplay, the identity of stuff you like, the Zelda, the Mario, you know, doing things their own way. You can't play Super Mario anywhere else, well, unless you do the illegal stuff, which if you do, Nintendo's just gonna send Wario ninjas through your windows, I guess, to stop you. But anyways, Nintendo is also not immune to what's going on right now either. They have rising prices too, people who are frustrated with them all of the time, and the questions about the state of the Switch 2. As Tech for Gamers reported here, Nintendo has cut Switch 2 production outputs by up to 2 million units due to weak holiday sales in 2025. If you want exact numbers of reduced Switch 2s being made, the amount comes to roughly 30% less being made right now. Why this is very bad is because, in case you forgot, the Switch 2 was also kind of named the fastest selling console of all time when it first released. But now its momentum hasn't died per se, but it's not exactly lighting the world on fire the way that Nintendo was hoping that it would. Nintendo now plans to produce about 4 million Switch 2s from the beginning of 2026 to about April this year, when they originally were going to make about 6 million units, but the demand just isn't there. Or maybe there is a demand, it probably is still there. But let's be honest, right? Because of how expensive everything is, you can't exactly expect people to spend the money needed for rent or food on a brand new console now, even if they want to. As Tech for Gamers says here, the Switch 2 sold 35% less than the original Switch during its initial holiday period. And with memory prices going up like crazy, yeah, it makes everything kind of not good at all. Eurogamer then spoke to the head of Ampere Analytics, as you can see here. According to Ampere's head analyst dude, they also think that everything is going to go up. That's PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, probably your toaster at this point, who knows? But here's what Ampere's analyst said: the supply chain shock of the elongated increase in memory and storage prices, both essential for console hardware, means that there is some inevitability to the PlayStation hardware price increases announced by Sony today. It is likely that Sony had price protections for its components for a set period, and this may well have come to an end. With no sign of prices easing largely due to demand for AI infrastructure, Sony will have made the move to protect its slim hardware margins. It wouldn't be a surprise if Microsoft and Nintendo followed suit in the not too distant future, they continued. A new wave of inflation is expected from the war in the Middle East, and this will compound the effect of the component price increases. This may have had an influence on the scale of these price increases. The standard PS5 will rise by $100 or 18% in the US. With a similar increase in the UK and Europe, aside from a direct impact on hardware companies, I think this will cause some general industry concern about what the broader impact will be on market activity. Yeah, they're bringing the war into this too. So they asked another analyst the same stuff, but everything they said can pretty much be summed up as what's going on fills them with dread, and they think with the cost of living going up the way that it is, something's got to break at some point with all of this. Not all of it's going to survive is the point. And this is extra awkward, right? Because there's a little game coming out called Grand Theft Auto 6. Maybe you heard about it. And it's going to be exclusive to consoles for at least a full year apparently too. So if that ends up being the case, right, with the PlayStation 5 being the lead platform, I would assume, for GTA 6, this now increase in price for the base model is going to tear people's wallets apart if they want to buy and play GTA 6 and have the best experience possible if they get the PS5 Pro as well. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Like the PS5 and the Pro, like just me owning those consoles, they're actually some of the only things I have right now that are, going up in value like the longer I own them. Isn't that kind of wild? Like, let me just put this into perspective with how cooked this is right now, alright? When the PS5 first launched in 2020 in Canada, where I am, it was $500 for the digital version of the PS5, the one without the disc tray. That same console is now almost $900 in Canada, 6 years later, mind you, in the same country for the same exact thing.
Oh, wait, you serious?
That is diabolical, guys. Actual supervillain price increases. That's insane. I don't know how Sony thinks this is going to work out for them. Maybe they're hoping the existence of GTA 6 is going to cause people to become rabid and lose all sense of self and buy in no matter the price because they gotta play that game. I don't know. But that's the thing, right? With both Sony and Nintendo, when these price increases the way that they've been going, like that's not the only thing that goes up. The expectations do too, because you can't blame them. Things are more expensive, so they gotta be better. And if those expectations of the games that people buy aren't meeting the insanely high prices they're now paying for consoles and then some, yeah, you're gonna get backlash, and deservedly so. But here's the thing. This isn't exactly about any one company. It's everybody, man. Like the whole industry is being crushed by this. And if you ask me, it's more so a systemic issue where the people who are like in charge of all of this, the executives, the dudes in the suits and their high towers who probably drink drink whiskey every morning while staring out their offices like they're Ozymandias and Watchmen or something. Like, they're the ones who believe that they understand things better than really anybody else. They believe their projections of where they want things to go, that we can make this much if we do this, that, and this, are somehow going to be right instead of the reality that we're all currently facing. It's basically, how do I put this? It's as if their ambition, I guess, is turning into delusion. Does that make sense? And when these sorts of mindsets take over, which it has, I mean, 10 years ago, if you told me that Sony would greenlight a game where a fat cartoon woman with a peg leg and Horizon Hunters would exist as a first-party title, I would laugh at you. Now, nobody's laughing. It's all a mess. It's like they're ignoring all the feedback and doubling down on things that don't work. Nintendo, at the very least, is still making games that they're known for, sure, but they're expensive either way. A single Nintendo game is like way more than any other game that you can get on any other platform right now. It's just way too much, dude. It's why I barely buy anything on my Switch 2, because price-wise, it just makes no sense. How are you expected to make money when you're charging these sorts of prices? Again, how is some kid out there who loves Nintendo meant to afford these games themselves if every game is their parents weighing on either to buy food for them or a new game instead? Like, here, little Timmy, enjoy the new Pokemon game. Sorry you have to, like, just eat ice cube soup for the next week or something, I guess. It's just not affordable anymore. No wonder the Switch 2 is going down in sales, because even if you buy one, the games are too expensive anyways. Like, if a game exists on both the PS5 and the Switch 2, 9 times out of 10, the Switch 2 version will cost more. Why? Because it's just how Nintendo does things. It's moronic, if you ask me.
Money, please.
Like, why is Tears of the Kingdom on Switch 2 something like $90 in Canada? The game is years old at this point. Just because you slapped a Switch 2 logo on it, doesn't mean you get to charge a collector's edition price for just the game and that's it. Honestly, all of this just feels like, to me, as if all of these massive resources these companies have are just being funneled into ideas that were just flawed from the start. Yeah, let's release a new PlayStation console, release barely any first-party single-player games, and instead cancel more live service titles than we've released actual complete games, and the live service titles that we do release only have one success in Helldivers 2, and the rest are either dead or dying already. Oh look, I'm Nintendo. I'm going to charge more for the next version of our previous console. I'm going to charge my customers even more money so that they can upgrade their games to a Switch 2 version and then force the cost of all first-party games to also be more money than any of my competition. It's not like they can get these games anywhere else.
Money, please.
Oh, what's that? What do you mean they're not buying the Switch 2? But how else are they going to play Donkey Kong Bonanza and Breath of the Wild Switch 2 version? They can't afford the games, but I specifically made it this way so that you have to buy into my console to play my games. How could this be happening? Now we're going to cut 30% of units made due to failing sales? Wow, who could have seen this one coming? Okay, but here's some good news, I guess, at least. So Nate the Hate, who leaks games all of the time, recently confirmed, as seen here, that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is apparently getting remade for the Switch 2 and will release this fall 2026. Yeah, that game is going to sell like hotcakes, because come on, it's Ocarina of Time. I get that. They're also apparently releasing a new Star Fox game this summer, and that From Software Duskbloods game is also coming this fall 2026 too. Sure, this is all fine and dandy, and I've no doubt that Ocarina of Time is going to sell like water on a desert planet. But it still doesn't fix the problem at its core, which is that these consoles are still too expensive. And by the way, when Ocarina of Time comes out, that's when your console might even cost even more, by the way. And Sony and Nintendo are just kind of going to lose their potential future customers, or even their current ones, to like the PC platform, because at this point a PC is going to cost less that can run the same level of games. And if they can use Steam, they can just get thousands of games for dirt cheap prices anyways. Why be on PlayStation or Nintendo? Sure, Sony is apparently pivoting and no longer releasing their PlayStation first-party games besides their live service ones on PC allegedly. But if you're going to do that, you kind of need games that give people a reason to want your PS5 in the first place. Because let's be real, right? You already released Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Miles Morales, both God of War and the Ragnarok games, Ghost of Tsushima, stuff like MLB The Show, and more on PC already. What is there right now for people to want a PS5 for then, right? The only game is like Demon's Souls remake from Bluepoint. Oh, wait, right, you guys closed them down too, didn't you? Well, I guess you can get Ghost of Yotei, but let's be real, who is going to buy a now even more expensive PS5 to play Ghost of Yotei of all things? Like, be serious now. Look, I get it, right? The budgets are all ballooning and all of that, but is this really the way to go about these sorts of things? All it's going to do is ruin the trust even more. I guess in the end, right, the industry probably believed that its biggest threat was its competition, right? Like for Sony, it would have been Nintendo and Xbox or whatever else. That this studio or that other platform would be the thing they would have to worry about. We got to make sure we rival Super Mario and then some. But instead, what we're seeing is just not really strengthening that case at all, man. Like the real threat here isn't external. Instead, it's internal. It's corporate mismanagement. It's the loss of the core identity in Sony's case especially. And like the hubris to believe that people will just accept whatever they're given by these companies. Like no one bought into a PlayStation because they wanted to play a Sony live service game. Everyone that bought a PlayStation, they bought it to play the PlayStation single player games that have defined them from the very beginning of the entire consoles existing, right? I don't care about Concord. I don't care about Marathon. I just want my single player games. But then again, even then they're ruining those with ideology nonsense and then too. So like, what are we doing? You can't exactly convince someone to buy Spider-Man 2 when they find out that game is full of just pandering and nonsense all the time too. But anyways, like it's not going to work, right? Because these companies have forgotten what made them successful in the first place. And they aren't really replacing what worked with something better anyways, as I just mentioned. And if you ask me, the more and more that this just keeps on going, the collapse that will come is going to happen due to the weight of their own decisions. And right now, the industry is getting dangerously close to that point. But what do you think? Let me know. Subscribe if you'd like to. Thanks for watching, guys. I didn't want to make such a bummer video, but like, come on, man, this is not good. I guess if you still do want a PS5 or a PS5 Pro or Switch 2, whatever, now is the time to probably buy it so that you don't get even more cooked in the future. I am interested also to see what happens once these prices do officially come into effect so that we can all see how it will go down in the long run, because I got a feeling when these things get more expensive, these companies are going to get even more mad about it and say, oh, why aren't we selling more consoles? What could have caused it? I don't know. Maybe don't be $900 for a PS5 Pro in America. That's over $1,000 Canadian. What are we doing? Either way, obviously, this is the wrong move, and I think those people out here hoping for like an industry-wide collapse, they're going to be getting their wish probably earlier than they anticipated, but just bleak, dude. Bleak.